Hi, my name is Matthew Aiello-Lammens. I made this screencast to introduce the concept of for loops in the R programming language as part of my final project for the software carpentry instructor training. I will be presenting material from the 5th version of the teaching material from the Programming with R section. A quick note, I'll be using RStudio for all of my demonstrations, and I will write commands and comments in a script up here in the upper left window, and execute commands using the keystroke on a Mac, Command Enter, or on Windows, Control Enter, and the executed commands will appear below in the console. Let's begin with our objectives. In this section, we're going to explain what a for loop does, correctly write for loops to repeat simple calculations, trace changes to a loop variable as the loop runs, and trace changes to other variables as they are updated by a for loop. Let's start with an example. Suppose we want to print out each word of a sentence stored as a variable. So here's our sentence. We'll call it best practice. And in it, we'll say, let the computer do the work. We could write a function such as this, print words, function sentence, and then print sentence, the first word, and similarly for the other 5 words. Just like that. We'll read in our function, and we'll execute that function. Oh, we have to execute best practice. And there we go. We've printed each word in this sentence. Well, this function does what we want it to do. This would be tedious to write if we wanted to print out a paragraph of 100 words or so. So that is, our function does not scale well. Also, our function is fragile. Meaning, if our sentence changes much, our function won't work. For example, or if we drop off the last word of our sentence, our function would return something that doesn't quite make sense to us. So, best practice. There we drop off the last word. And we see that we have a NA down here, which doesn't really make sense. Oops. Actually, I wanted this to be called best practice, not best practice. So I'm just going to change that now and re-execute best practice. Okay. We can make a new function that is both scalable and less fragile using a for loop. So here I'm going to write a new function using a for loop. So I'll call this the for loop approach. Rewrite the print words function, again using function sentence. So here we're going to do for word in sentence, print word, and my for loop, and my function definition. Execute the new function, and try it out on my sentence. And there we go. We see that it works just as my original function, but now if I take the last word of the sentence off, see it prints only 5 words and no NA at the end here. What we have done is use a for loop to repeat an operation, here the print statement, one time for each thing in a collection. The general form of the for loop is for loop general form for variable in collection do things with variable and the for loop. We usually refer to the variable as the loop variable. We can call the loop variable just about anything we want, within the standard variable name constraints. Also, note that in here is a part of the for loop syntax. And lastly, note that the body of the for loop is enclosed in curly brackets. These brackets aren't necessary if the for loop is written all in a single line, but it's good practice to use them regardless. This has been a very brief introduction to for loops. For loops are an integral component in nearly all programming languages, and will no doubt be important in any academic programming. There are many more details to learn, some of which are covered in the remaining software carpentry learning material. Thanks for listening.